Let's watch this series, okay? That's from this YouTuber that I don't know, and it's Where Are the Asian Borders? And I was really excited to watch it because I'm just curious. Yeah, where are the Asian borders? Especially here in this Eurasia part, where I think it goes between like Russia and Siberia, somewhere along here, but you don't know. Also, where does the Middle East really begin, and where does Africa, for example, begin? I think that probably be at the Suez Canal, and the whole situation between Asia and Oceania. I don't know about that. Where are the Asian 3 million views? Sounds like a pretty popular video, but I haven't watched it.
Square
Maybe this video is not good, but hey.
kilometers. That's 30% of the Earth's total land area. It has given rise to many.
Okay.
I'm Kento Bento.
Asia is the largest of all continents, covering an area of 44,579,000 square kilometers. That's 30% of the Earth's total land area. It has given rise to many
Asia
of
is
the world's
big.
first
We know that.
civilizations and has long been home to the majority of the human population.
Always.
But have you ever wondered what actually counts as Asia? Where exactly are the borders?
Honestly, I hate to be ignorant about this, but I've never really wondered. I just like, oh, well, Asia is somewhere along there. But where does Asia start? Where does Asia end? I think that's the interesting question.
In between countries, or can a country be divided? I'll be getting into all of that, but first, let's start over in East Asia, where it isn't as confusing. We will begin at this point.
Okay.
Where the Tumen River flows into the Sea of Japan,
North Korea and
which also serves as
Russia.
the border between North Korea and Russia. Now, continents are large, continuous, discrete masses of land, ideally separated by large expanses of water. So all of this is within Asia: North Korea, South Korea, and China. Keep your eye on this red borderline, as everything contained within will be considered part of Asia, and everything outside belongs to a different continent. Now,
Well, the definition of continent is rather arbitrary. True, there's a lot of people that define continents using the tectonic plates of the Earth, or just a lot of things. People still. This is very debatable. So,
about Japan and Taiwan, they're islands, and not actually part of this large, continuous, discrete landmass. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that they are still considered part of Asia. By convention and in practice,
But
for
why?
reasons historical,
Well-
geological, and geopolitical in nature, most major
Okay,
islands
yeah,
are associated with a continent, and usually it's the continent closest to it. Zooming in on Japan, there are smaller islands on top and below that may cause some confusion with their Asian association. Up here, we have this group that trail off into the North Pacific. But for now, let's not worry about that, since the division between Japan and Russia is said to be here. Or here, depending on which side of the disagreement you're on. But since these islands are nonetheless administered by the Russian Federation, I'll leave it for now and head down south to here. The Ryukyu Islands, which includes Okinawa, is part of Asia, as well as these islands known as the Izu Islands. However, way down here lies Japan's remote
Bonin Islands. I've heard
also
about
known
these
as
islands.
the Ogasawara Islands. Iwo Jima Island lies over here.
The Battle of
famous
Iwo
for the
Jima,
1945 Battle of Iwo Jima. These Pacific islands, administered by Tokyo, are the only Japanese exceptions and are not considered geographically Asian. They are so remote and removed from the rest of Asia that many of their animals and plants.
So I guess they're part of Oceania, or some people call the continent Australia. So I don't like that name. Yeah, Australia is the country, but whatever. So yeah, these islands are in the Pacific and are not part of Asia. Nice. Imagine being born in Japan but not in Asia. It'd be like a very interesting conversation.
Have undergone
We're gonna
unique
end with that one,
evolutionary
all right?
processes leading to the island's nickname of the Galapagos of the Orient. This was also where footage of the giant squid was first caught
Oh
on film.
shit! I hate the ocean,
That's
bro.
it for Japan, so let's go back to the mainland
It gives me
and
the
continue
chills,
the
you know?
borders to Southeast
I don't
Asia.
like the ocean.
Here are where things seem to break down. Looking at the Malay archipelago, a group of over 25,000 islands.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. What a mess. When do you really define the border of Asia? I'm imagining it's gonna be somewhere around like on this like lower bottom of Indonesia, between Timor-Leste and the part of Indonesia on the island of New Guinea. But
including the
I don't know,
Philippines,
though.
East Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore, Timor-Leste, Indonesia, and sometimes the island of New Guinea. You may be wondering, where exactly does Asia end?
Yeah.
And for that matter, where does the continent of Australia begin? The simple answer is, depends. It would depend on your own interpretation, since there is no universally defined standard for continents. but there is a way to make sense. Malaysia, Brunei, and Singapore
Yeah,
are in
these
Asia.
are Asia.
I'll get back to Indonesia and Timor-Leste shortly. I say almost everyone because a rare few actually draw the border here,
Nah,
which
fuck
would leave
that.
the entire Malay archipelago as part of Australia, the continent, not the country. Actually, for the sake of clarity, I'll use the term Australasia from now on.
Australasia,
Now,
all right, I
conversely,
like that.
some draw the border here, which would make the island of New Guinea Asian.
Part of Asia.
These are extreme interpretations, so let's disregard that and focus on the more widely accepted options. There is a boundary that runs straight through the center of New Guinea that separates the country of Papua New Guinea
That's true.
from Indonesia. Indonesia, a country comprising of over 17,000 islands, is largely considered to be Asian, whereas Papua New Guinea, partly due to its stronger geopolitical ties with its southern neighbors, is considered Australasian.
I could see that.
As a result, many draw the division between Asia and Australasia to be here. It seems simple enough, despite the questionable act of splitting a single island between two continents. However, from a geological and biological standpoint,
Doesn't make a lot of
it's pretty
sense,
inaccurate.
right? Because I mean, an island is gonna have animals that maybe belong to a certain continent, especially in the case of Australia, that has a very unique wildlife, if you could say that. You know, sometimes deadly, but
Alfred Russel Wallace noticed that animals and plants up to this boundary were of Asian origin, whereas past this point, they were of Australian origin. This line is now called the Wallace line
Wallace
and
line.
denotes the stark contrast in evolutionary offshoots on each side of the line.
so
It
like
is this Wallace line that is often used as the southeastern border
kangaroos
of Asia.
and stuff like
But
that.
notice this places the country of Timor-Leste in Australasia, despite many considering it to be part of Asia. So perhaps it's better to have this line as the
Oh.
southeastern border, or even this line. The Weber line, named after the German-Dutch zoologist Max Weber, is the most preferred alternative to the Wallace line. It was proposed after Weber revealed a flaw in Wallace's research, where he felt vertebrate mammals in the region weren't properly accounted for. I won't go into any more detail,
You
but there's
were
also the
flawed,
Lydekker line,
son.
named after English naturalist and geologist Richard Lydekker, which places the boundary further east. This
I
includes
mean, let's just split it half, right? I mean, you know, use the middle, the one in the middle, and that's it. You know, we win. True deadly
the
nature.
transitional region is known as Wallacea. And if you further break down the analysis to include the continental shelves of Asia and Australasia, a continental shelf being the underwater extension of a continent that includes the nearby shallow submerged area as well as the islands on the shelf, you can see that the Wallace line happens to closely line up with the edge of the Asian continental
Yeah,
shelf.
true.
And same for the Lydekker line, but for the Australasian continental shelf. This makes sense, as during the Pleistocene ice ages, when the sea levels were lower and
Damn,
greater
this video
areas
is
of
good,
continental
though.
shelf were exposed as dry land, almost all the islands in the Malay archipelago were joined to either the Asian or Australasian landmass, with a gap roughly the size of Wallacea remaining in the middle. Therefore, you can see how many forms of life could easily cross over from Asia to the various islands of western Indonesia, and likewise from Australia to New Guinea and
yeah.
eastern Indonesia when the sea levels were lower. There was no crossing the deep ocean trenches, however, and this, appropriately, is why the division between Asia and Australasia
So
should at
difficult.
least be somewhere in this region. For the purpose of this video, I'll split the difference and choose the Weber line as the Asian border.
Yes.
You can see this leaves Indonesia split across two continents, making it a
Transcontinental.
transcontinental country.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Technically,
Well,
Japan-
he's not gonna talk about the Americas, but you could make the case for Panama to be a transcontinental country. If you think North and South America are two continents, which a lot of times in Latin America, at least in Mexico, it's like there's only one continent, that's America. But when you live in the U.S., they tell you it's two continents or three sometimes.
Japan is also a transcontinental country if you factor in the Bonin,
The Bonin
Islands.
Islands, yeah.
But unlike Indonesia, the separation includes only a very small area.
Yeah,
Before we move on
come
from
on,
the Malay
Japan.
archipelago, I just want to point out these two island territories, Australia's Caucasus Islands and Christmas
They're part
Island.
of Asia.
Even though they're Australian, they're often considered to be part of Asia.
Australia
Back
is
to
a
the mainland.
transcontinental country
Let's
too.
finish up the coastal borders of Southeast Asia with Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Western Malaysia, and Myanmar. And let's not forget the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. All right, now we're on to South Asia. Pretty straightforward here.
So
We have
yeah, there's not
Bangladesh,
gonna be any issues here. I don't think America teaches three continents, but they do teach three regions. Oh, really? I mean, usually it's Americans that use North America and South America, but I mean, Maybe I don't really know. Considering America dug a bloody canal through Panama, yeah, sure. Egypt is also in two continents. True, the
India,
Suez
Sri
Canal
Lanka,
dividing
Pakistan, and I've
Egypt,
noticed that many people tend to forget this country
the
here, the
Maldives,
Maldives, Asia's smallest country by both area and population. There's also
part
the
of
British
Asia,
Indian
bro.
Ocean Territory, all part of Asia. Continuing on to
Making the UK a transcontinental country too?
Southwest Asia,
Maybe,
or you
not
can say the
really.
Middle East, we start to enter regions where it may get confusing for some people.
Really?
Entering the Persian Gulf, we have Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates.
My future
Heading towards the
home.
Gulf of Aden,
Hopefully.
we have Oman, that part's Oman too, Yemen, Saudi Arabia on the west. Actually, let's backtrack to Yemen. The Arabian Peninsula is geographically Asian, which would clearly put Yemen in Asia. But what about some of its nearby islands, like the Hanish Islands and Barim Island in the Red Sea,
Ooh.
as the continent of Africa is right here? Turns out most of the
Are
Yemen
these
islands
African?
are still associated with Asia,
They're Asia.
except for the Socotra Archipelago in the Arabian Sea, a group of 4 islands often described as
ew.
the most alien-looking place on Earth.
What the fuck is
Socotra
that?
is part of Yemen, but located closer to the Horn of Africa. It also lies on Africa's continental shelf that extends from Somalia.
So, I mean, I hate to be saying this, but I guess Oman is a transcontinental country, man. I mean, good God. My continent, America, Afro-Eurasia, and Oceania. America only finished what the French started. Oh, it's true. The French started the canal, and Turkey.
So even though it's not that far from Asia, it is often
America
considered
bought the
to be
project
part
for the
of
Canal
Africa.
Canal, if
And
I'm not
speaking of
mistaken.
Africa, we have this region here to deal with.
Ooh, there we
Even though
go.
Egypt is considered part of the Middle East, and the Middle East is said to be a division of Asia, Egypt isn't considered Asian.
Yeah, of course.
So it would seem to make sense for Asia's African border to be here.
But
But then continents are supposed to be large, continuous, discrete masses of land that are separated by large expanses of water. Just like how splitting New Guinea between 2 continents would have seemed odd, putting the border here disregards Asia's geographic connection to actually the whole of Africa. It's all connected. And for that matter, Asia, Africa, and Europe are all one connected landmass and should therefore really be considered a single continent called Afro-Eurasia.
Afro-Eurasia.
But since
There we
no one
go.
can agree on a fixed definition for a continent, we instead divide it into 3 continents. Now, here this leads to confusion. Since there is no large expanse of water that clearly separates the landmass, how do we choose the border? Well, many look to this marker as the solution,
Suez Canal.
the Suez Canal. Still a separation of water, albeit a very narrow and shallow separation.
And man-made.
This seems logical. However, just like the Panama Canal that separates North and South America, it is artificial, so it's not a natural division. In addition, this would leave Egypt mainly in Africa, but with an awkward northeastern dog's ear jutting out into Asia. Yet we know from Indonesia that hanging out in 2 different continents is no big deal.
it's fair,
especially
it's
with the
legal.
separation being on an isthmus. So that's what we have here. Egypt is another transcontinental country, and actually it's even more unique since the division is on the actual mainland and not a separation of islands. This video is already getting quite long, and so far we're only about halfway through. There's still the Asia-Europe border to get into, a situation that may even be more puzzling than the Malay archipelago. There's also the issue with Russia, as well as the division between Asia and North America, which isn't as simple as you
Really?
might think. I will be finishing the
I mean,
second
it
half
looks
of the
pretty
border.
straightforward to me. I see the future, the world island. Too complicated. Let's go back to Pangea. Bro, times were simpler back then. But fuck it, let's just watch it.
This video is sponsored by High Native. Learn languages for free with the High Native app.
Or how about we just separate the continents by melting Antarctica? Hey, sounds like a simple solution to me.
Asia is the largest and
Well.
most populous continent in the world. From the physical extremes to the cultural. It's a continent that has shown tremendous diversity from one end to the other. But what exactly counts as Asia? Where are the Asian borders? In a previous video, I started defining the borders in a clockwise direction from East Asia, through the boundaries bordering Australia and Africa, ending on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. If you want to know where exactly the Asian borders lie in those regions, the link is in the description below. In this video, we'll continue on in our journey to Europe. Stick around to the end for more details on this Asian border series.
So, I mean, I absolutely have no freaking clue where does Russia separate between the European Russian part and the the Russian, like, Asian
So
part.
let's start where we left off, between Egypt and the Gaza Strip. With
Ooh.
Asia being so large and diverse, the continental division can
Whoops.
often have more to do with human geography than physical geography.
Yeah,
And there's no
that's the
better
thing,
example
right?
of this than the controversial Asia-Europe border. Now, continents are large, continuous, discrete masses of land ideally separated by expanses of water. So we can see how all of this is within Asia. Palestine, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, and Turkey.
What about Cyprus,
I'll get
though?
into
Yeah.
Turkey in just a minute. Keep your eye on this red borderline, as everything contained within will be considered part of Asia, and everything outside belongs to a different continent. Okay, but what about the island country of Cyprus? Since most major islands, by convention, are associated with a continent, Cyprus is usually placed in Asia. I
No
say usually
way.
because while Cyprus's proximity to the rest of Asia makes it Asian to many people, it is sociopolitically a European country. Cyprus was admitted to the Council of Europe in 1961 and is politically a member of the European Union since 2004. Sure, it's a little further away than the rest of the EU countries, but according to the EU's own
quite far.
requirements, cultural and geographic definitions of Europe are intertwined and thus are subject to political assessment. Now, for the sake of this are intertwined,
I love how he puts a Brexit sign to the United Kingdom. Hey,
and thus are subject
You
to
know?
political assessment. Now, for the
the Ural mountain range, the Urals. Oh, okay. Some people consider Kazakhstan a transcontinental country.
sake of this
Kazakhstan,
video and due
okay.
to its physical geography, I'm
I
still
guess
gonna
we'll figure
place
it out.
Cyprus
At
in
least with
Asia.
this guy's
Keep in mind,
opinion.
as with much of the Asia-Europe border, this is not definitive and can be open to interpretation.
Like all
Moving on
continents.
to Turkey. If we follow the continuous landmass, we can trace the Asian borders along the Aegean Sea, the Dardanelles, and the Sea of Marmara, up to, for now, the Turkish city of
Istanbul.
We know Greece and Bulgaria are part of Europe, so the continental division should be somewhere here, which would put at least most of Turkey
In Asia. Yeah, for sure.
As for these islands, it's a lot easier to place the divide along country lines. Most of these are Greek. But of course, just like for Indonesia, it's debatable. If we take into account a combination of factors, including mainland distance, island
A lot of Greek people might get pissed about
clusters, and just having more of a continental consistency with other archipelagos, you'll see that quite a few Greek islands can be claimed by Asia, including Chios, Samos, and Rhodes.
Rhodes.
This is
The
where
Rhodes
I'll
is
draw the
quite an
maritime border,
important
which would technically make Greece a transcontinental
Bro, we've had like 6 or 7 transcontinental countries, so
country. And speaking of transcontinental countries, back up here, the continental border is usually placed here,
yeah.
instead of at the Greek and Bulgarian borders, splitting Turkey into Asian Turkey and European Turkey. This actually makes sense historically and geographically.
East
If we
Thrace
zoom up
and
on Istanbul,
Anatolia.
you can see the narrow Bosphorus Strait,
The Bosphorus
an
Strait,
internationally
yeah.
significant waterway, already creating a clear natural divide between the two sides.
And it is natural. This one is
unlike the
not man-made.
division
Yeah.
of, say, the Suez Canal. Not only does all this make Turkey a transcontinental country, but it also makes the cities of Istanbul and Çanakkale transcontinental cities. As for whether Turkey
Damn, that's pretty cool. Not only do I live in a transcontinental country, but I live in a transcontinental city. That'd be pretty cool. You can be in Asia and Europe in the same day.
as a whole
you know?
should be considered
You can work in Asia and like live in Europe, or live in Asia and work in Europe. That must be quite an
Asian
interesting
or European,
experience.
if we had to choose one. That's probably too complicated a topic to get into now, but I may do a video on it in the future if enough people are
They made a
interested.
video about it.
Now this
Probably
is where
not,
things
right?
get even more complicated. Since there is no significant geographical separation between
Sparking of Greeks and naming Asia, there's a lot of videos about how Asia got named.
and Europe,
Too
from the
bad,
point of the
though.
Black Sea onwards,
Because
the
I have my
border
Greek
becomes
flag
largely
up
an
there. You can't see
arbitrary,
it, but
historical and cultural construct. And this is a big part of why many people feel Asia and Europe should never have been considered different continents to start with. But let's try to answer this anyway. Where should the borders be? If we go with the most long-standing traditional border convention, I'm talking historically throughout the ages, since the time of Strabo and Ptolemy, you have this route.
Ptolemy, all right.
Continuing along the coast of the Black Sea and through the Kerch Strait, you find the Sea of Azov. We're now in Russia. You follow the Don River and Volga River to the Samara Bend, move across the highland ridges of which I cannot pronounce, then finally follow the peaks or crest of the Ural Mountains all the way to the Arctic Ocean.
There we go, the
Here,
Ural
Russia
Mountains.
is split into Asian Russia and European Russia. Now, maybe you feel that the boundary should be defined more along large bodies of water, such as the Black Sea and Caspian Sea. And since the Kumamanich Depression is a valley that once upon a time connected the two into an even larger body of water, perhaps we should instead have the border move through the Kumamanich Depression.
I've seen Call Me Ezekiel's, that's a pretty good channel.
The next best option might just be following the Ural River up to the Ural Mountains, then once again reaching the Arctic Ocean. This time, both Russia and Kazakhstan are split
so
up.
that's where the whole Kazakhstan being a transcontinental country is born from.
Okay, 2 choices so far, but we do have a third.
A third?
We see that the Ural Mountains divide is the only natural feature
universal,
that isn't much disputed, and for good reason. So in keeping with mountainous divides, maybe here the peaks of the Greater Caucasus Mountains is the way to go, instead of the Kumamanich Depression. And you could also argue that just like the Urals, it's the most prominent natural feature in the region. Now from here,
I like
path along
that
the Caspian coast and Ural River to the Ural Mountains. I should mention though that some note the eastern foothills of the Ural Mountains as the borderline instead of the peaks.
Okay, got it.
Right, this leaves us with 3 options to choose from.
I like the
classical,
third.
the water-centric, and the mountainous.
Let's go for
Actually,
the third.
There's even more, but these are the main 3. For this video, I'm going to go with the one favored by most modern-day geographers, and that's the last one, along the Greater Caucasus Mountains. You can see this puts Georgia and Azerbaijan physically in Asia, with a few bits and pieces technically
in Europe.
This can seem odd as the two countries along...
I mean, we watched Eurovision. Georgia, I think even Azerbaijan are in that tournament. So I think Azerbaijan, definitely Georgia and Armenia, very close to Europe anyways. So...
with Armenia are often considered more European by many people for reasons historical and socio-political. All 3 are in the Council of Europe, the EU's Eastern Partnership, and most importantly, the Eurovision Song Contest. Azerbaijan even won it in 2011.
Hey, Azerbaijan
so you
won.
can see how some are adamant that the borders be drawn along country lines. Of course, this completely neglects the concept of a natural continental boundary, which is important since, as we know from history, state borders can change over time, but natural borders, well, they stay relatively consistent. Moving along to Kazakhstan, the provinces of Atirau and West Kazakhstan extend on both sides of the border, making it clearly transcontinental. But still, Kazakhstan is mostly associated with Asia due to the cultural and geographic similarities to other Central Asian countries. If we zoom up over here to the Ural River Bridge in the city of Orenburg, Russia, you'll actually find that on one side of the river, it is labeled and marked Europe, while on the other side, it's Asia. Now, I'm not going to get into whether Russia is considered Asian or European for reasons similar to Turkey, but it is clear that physically, there's a greater part of it lying in Asia. So let's continue the borders over in this North Asian region. We'll move along the Arctic coast of Russia, which spans the Kara Sea, the Laptev Sea, the East Siberian Sea. There's also the Russian Arctic islands of Komsomolets, October Revolution, Bolshevik, New Siberian.
What? So there's an island called the Bolshevik, and there's another island called October Revolution. Oh yeah, you know, I'm just gonna go to my house. It's located near October Revolution, so hey. Russia, man. I know. These names, I know, bro. Armenia is considered Europe for political and cultural reasons. I would probably agree with that. Gotta love these Stan countries. They are quite unique, you know.
Ones. This brings us to the final leg of our journey. Here lies the Asia-North America border, where Siberia comes real close to meeting Alaska. This actually isn't as straightforward as you might think, and I've decided to cover this final portion in a separate Part 3 video. I'll be connecting it back to where we started off in East Asia, so make sure you're subscribed to get that. Now, on this channel, we talk a lot about different countries, of which...
You talk a lot about Asia, my guy. Literally Asiani videos. Let's just go watch Part 3, you know?
This video is made possible by Brilliant, a problem-solving website that teaches you
Can you
to
do a
think
third
like
part?
a scientist.
For sure, bro.
The first 200 people to sign up at brilliant.org/Kento Bento
Let's do Part
will
3.
get 20% off their premium subscription. Where are the
Especially
In
if you're
previous videos,
Mexican.
we started
Are you
defining
Mexican?
these borders
You know?
in a clockwise direction from East Asia, through the boundaries bordering Australia, Africa, and Europe, along the Arctic coast of Siberia, and finally ending just shy of the Asia-North America border. For many of you watching, this region of Asia is likely to be the most unfamiliar of the entire
Siberia?
continent, at least according to our Twitter followers. And while the continental divide here may appear simple at first, there are definitely a few intricacies for us to break down. In this video, we'll
A lot of the
continue on
islands,
in our
right?
journey to Alaska. Just a reminder, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button so you can be part of our notification squad. So let's start where we left off, on the Russian coast between the East Siberian Sea and the Chukchi Sea, just below Wrangel Island, which is part of Asia, also the last place on Earth where woolly mammoths survived. Note, everything contained within this red borderline is considered part
I didn't knew that was the last place woolly mammoths lived, but hey, interesting.
of Asia, while everything outside belongs to a different
I'm
continent.
pure French in
This
Canada.
extreme northeastern
Quebecois.
part of the mainland is the Chukotka Autonomous Okrug of the Russian Far East, one of the least densely populated regions
Of the
Asia.
planet.
Now, as mentioned before, by convention, continents are large, continuous, discrete masses of land ideally separated by expanses
By
of
water.
So this is Asia, and this is not.
What?
Wait.
Oh
What about
God,
this?
I was like, well, yo, is this for real? You know, this looks very real though.
By expand.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell?
Wait. What about this? Let's back up. So sure, let's continue the borders along the Chukotka coastline, officially leaving the Arctic at this point. Note the Arctic Circle. Over here lies the Bering Strait, 82 kilometers wide at its narrowest point between
Imagine that. The United States and Russia are only 82 kilometers apart.
Cape Dezhnev in
That's
Russia
not a lot.
and Cape Prince of Wales in Alaska. Now, you may have heard the Bering Strait being the subject of a scientific hypothesis where during the last
Humans
glacial
crossed,
period, humans crossed over from Asia to North America across a land bridge. Today, one of the last remaining visible parts of that land bridge are these islands, known as the Diomede
He
Islands,
actually baited
lying
me.
midway between the two continents. Zooming up closer, you can see that it consists of
He fell for it low. I'm sure America and Russia don't like touching each other by the tip.
two islands.
They don't
Big
touch
Diomede
tips.
and
That's
Little
pretty
Diomede.
homo.
The question, though, is are they considered
No homo,
part
bro.
of Asia? Back at the beginning of the 19th century, the Russian Empire
Nicholas
had extended all the way
II.
past the Bering Strait into Alaska.
Yeah, they
with
went-
the whole of Alaska
Russia had
being a
Alaska.
Russian territory. But that was until 1867, when they sold it to
America
the
bought
United
it.
States for $7.2 million.
That's actually that's a bargain, dude.
67, when they sold it to the United States for
$116 million for the whole of Alaska. I mean, talk about a good deal. That is a good deal.
$7.2 million. The text of the
He actually
1867
baited me.
treaty between the US and Russia used the Diomede Islands to designate the boundary between the two countries. The subsequent border, which would then also serve as the continental boundary, separated equidistantly Big Diomede from Little Diomede, meaning these two islands, inhabited by the same indigenous peoples and at a distance of just 3.8 kilometers, would now formally lie on different continents. Big Diomede being part of Russia and Little Diomede part of the US. This making Big Diomede the easternmost point of Asia. The close-knit communities bound by family kinships, yes, were now separated by politics and state borders,
countries,
even
yeah.
continental borders, and as such were forbidden to cross over. Notice
Wow.
that the islands are also separated by the international date line, making Big Diomede almost a day ahead of Little Diomede, with a 21-hour time difference. This despite their close proximity. As such, the islands are sometimes
Ridiculous.
referred to as Tomorrow Island and Yesterday Isle. Okay, that's it for the Diomedes. Let's move on down to the much larger St. Lawrence Island in the Bering Sea. An island with
My
no trees
goddamn
or
petrol.
bushes and belonging
Sad.
to Alaska. Even though it's closer to the Russian mainland, it's usually associated with North America. Same goes with St. Matthew Island and the Pribilof Islands. Over here, we continue the border with the Kamchatka Peninsula, Wait, but how about these chain of islands
Oh.
extending westward from the Alaska Peninsula?
These are all part of
These
Alaska.
are the Aleutian Islands, which mark a dividing line between the Bering Sea and the Pacific Ocean. These volcanic islands also form the northernmost part of the Pacific Ring of Fire. Now, this line here is the 180th meridian, the exact opposite of the prime meridian, dividing the Earth into the eastern and western hemispheres. This is where some people choose to draw the boundaries for the Aleutians. The thing is, though,
there's some pretty
this
crazy
is all
videos about
part
time
of
zones.
Alaska,
Japan occupied
which
some
makes
of
the
these
Aleutian
islands
the
during
home
World
to
War
sure
II.
the
Damn.
westernmost point of North America, Amatiganak Island, but also the easternmost point of North America, that being Semipochnoi Island, making Alaska a transcontinental state, and the westernmost, easternmost, and northernmost state of the US. But if we were to go with the westernmost point of North America in real terms, that being the farthest from mainland Alaska, it would be Attu Island. These islands over here, however, are the Commander Islands or Komandorsky Islands, which, while being a physical extension of the Aleutian Islands, actually belong to Russia, leading most to agree with the continental split being here. You can also see the international dateline running between.
Into there. Okay.
From North Korea to Indonesia, Egypt, Turkey, Kazakhstan, and then Russia, it's now time for our journey.
We finally go back
The border
to
continues
North
on
Korea.
past the Sea of Okhotsk. There's the Sakhalin Island and the Kuril Islands, but this final stretch here is pretty interesting because it's actually considered part of South America. Just kidding,
What?
it's Asian, and we're
Oh
done.
shit! I was like, what is this guy talking about? Part of South America? What? The Aleutian Islands, aka the island chain, blue balling the Russian Far East fleets as American can easily monitor them. That's true. I mean, I think you put it so well. You know, they blue ball Russia.